I know I'm stealing Dank Pods' format. Shut up. Junji Ito's Fragments of Horror. Ooh, I almost hit the camera. Junji Ito's Fragments of Horror. Just in time for the scariest holiday of the year, Thanksgiving. Ooh. Your father has a brand new girlfriend and she's your age. Ooh. Junji Ito's Fragments of Horror is a collection of 9 short stories written by Junji Ito and published in 2014. He wrote all of these stories after taking an 8-year break from horror, which according to him in the postword, which is at the back of the book, hold on, there we go, is the longest period of time that he had gone without writing any horror at all. In fact, he didn't even know if he could write horror anymore, low-key, which is why he wrote 9 stories immediately after realizing he might be washed. So you can almost see this compendium of horror stories as a do I still got it type of collection. And I gotta say, after reading this entire book in one afternoon, which is about like 2 to 3 hours, I think is how long I spent on it, he still got it. He still got it. This was a very enjoyable read. Now, I really do enjoy Junji Ito's work, but to call myself a fan, I feel like is a little bit of an overstep because while I have read Uzumaki, I haven't read much else. Most of my interaction with all of his stories is basically based off of recommendations. I tell somebody I've read Uzumaki and they go, "Oh, you've read Uzumaki? You should read this short story." Then I look it up, I read the short story, I'm like, ooh, that's scary, ooh, that's a scary lady. And then that's kind of it, because at least for me, in terms of like short horror stories, I kind of like to own the entire compendiums that they're in. And this is the only one I own, and I was gifted this by my younger brother very recently. So I haven't interacted with many of his stories, including most of the ones in here besides the first one, Futon, which is one of my favorite Junji Ito stories for reasons we'll get into. But I gotta say, after reading this, I'm definitely gonna make more of an effort to find the actual compendiums of his work, because this guy, he's cooking. He's cooking. My phone's dying. Ah, shit. This is what I get for procrastinating, dude. I'm the worst. I'm the worst. Okay, we gotta speed run this. I can't, yeah. I just gotta speed run my thoughts. We gotta stay on target. We gotta stay on point. So the thing about Junji Ito stories and why I enjoy them so much is that some of the stories have endings and some of the stories just end. What I mean by this is that they all have this buildup, right? They're all horror stories for the most part. And they build and they build and they build, and then you get to the, the scary 2-page spread. Oh shit, what's going on here? And then all the other horror stuff kicks in. And sometimes after this point, the story, concludes naturally. All the threads get wrapped up, all the characters have endings and stuff, people go through their arcs or whatever. But other times the story is just the futon that makes you high. And then that's the end of the story. You get to the horror shit and then it's over. In one page. It's just done. And some people might find that frustrating, but I find it incredibly entertaining. And the reason I find it so entertaining is because when a story ends, it kind of gets alluded to that it's going to have like an actual ending. And the endings in most of his stories are actually pretty satisfying. However, his ends are also pretty satisfying because they're just such what the fuck endings. It almost entices you to go back through the entire story to see if any of that was real. It's almost like a whatchamacallit, it's almost like a nightmare in a sense, right? You wake up from a nightmare and you go, what the actual fuck did I just witness? I can see how some people could find that frustrating, but I find that both hilarious and like kind of scary. Like the horror is still maintained for me, at least. Now I want to quickly go through all the stories and rank them based on how much I enjoyed them. I'm gonna be speed running this a little bit because my phone is on 15%, but we're gonna get to it. We're gonna get to it. The book starts with Futon, which, to be fair, is probably Junji Ito's weakest story. In fact, he admits his original draft didn't make any sense for this story at the end of this book, and he also says that this is probably his weakest story. However, it's my favorite because it really is just like, it's such a goofy goober experience. Now, for most of these stories, I'm not going to spoil them because it's a horror story. You don't really want to spoil all the scary parts or the ending. But for Futon's getting spoiled. Futon is like 5 pages long. This bitch getting spoiled. Now, Futon is a story about this couple named Tomio and Madoka. Tomio is having these weird dreams about shit in the house. There's demons. You gotta hide under the futon. It's the only way you're gonna be able to avoid it. Now, Madoka doesn't really believe him until all of a sudden one night when she's sleeping next to him, boom, hell on earth, axons, there's dendrites for some reason, there's neurons with devils on them. I realized there are some demons with their titties out on this page. I'm gonna get demonetized. She sees them, she tweaks out. He admits that he cheated on her with some random lady for no reason, and that's the reason any of this started. She runs away and he stays hidden. She comes back a couple days later, there she is, put it on camera please, and this dude is just covered in just mold. His futon is covered in mold and it makes him high. Strong hallucinogenic effects, like they were just tweaking. His futon was covered in so much mold that they both just started tweaking. They just had a bad trip and he lived. So, you know, that's cool. That doesn't happen often with Junji Ito, the characters living, and they just might reappear later in the story. Now, Wooden Spirit, the next story right after that, I'm not gonna tell you shit about this story. I'm not gonna tell you shit about this story. This story might be my favorite in the entire compendium because this story also has a what the fuck it just ends type of ending, but it's way more satisfying than this one and probably what this one should have been. This story, holy shit, dude, the ending is insane. I'm telling you, dude, the tension in this story with fucking Lady Dimitrescu over here and this dude and his daughter who own this house, oh my goodness. First of all, look at how she's ginormous, bro. She's tall as shit. I want to yap to you about the whole plot because it's insane, but I just can't. You gotta read it. Oh, who is this lady? Why is she so tall? Why is she kind of thick? Why is she not in my life? Such a good story, dude. Such a good story. If there's one thing for you to take away from this video, it's read this motherfucking story. Now, the very next story, Red Turtleneck, I also really want to like talk around. I don't really want to spoil all too much, but basically, it's a sequel to Futon. It stars the exact same couple. This nigga's still cheating, and let's just say, he got a little ahead of himself. You know what I mean? Like, there's a little bit of repercussions for the romantic and fucking some other pun. Let's just say he should have used his head before he lost his mind. There it is. Now that's a line. The story also has a very good balance of both comedy and body horror, so very good, very good. I like this one too. This might be my second favorite. Now, Gentle Goodbye is probably one of the best stories I've ever seen written about grief and processing grief. He does it in a very Junji Ito way. I'm spoiling the ending of the other story, hold on. Now, he explores grief and like trying to move on from your loved ones dying in a very Junji Ito way. It's just it's just fucking, it's an actual like tearjerker. It's very good. This is again another example of one of those stories that has an ending like the previous story, and the ending of this story is very satisfying. It's very bittersweet. I enjoyed this a lot, and one of the reasons that I think he not only wrote this but also wrote it so beautifully and effectively is because while he was making these short stories, these horror stories, this compendium, his mentor passed away. And I think this story is his own unique way of him actually dealing with and processing that grief. It's scary, but not for the reasons that you would think it would be scary in a book like this. The actual real life aspects of this story are a lot scarier than the supernatural aspects of the story, and I'll just leave it at that. The next story is Dissection-chan, and it's a body horror comedy thing, and it's not my favorite, but it was pretty good. Like, Junji Ito really went through this entire story about grief and processing grief to a story about a woman that really wants to be dissected for some reason. The twist, I'm not gonna lie, you're probably gonna see it coming a mile away, and when you get there, it's cool looking, but that's about it. So we're just gonna move on to the next story, Blackbird. And this story fucked me up. This might be top 3 stories he's ever written. Now, I don't know if you guys have heard of the Dyatlov Pass incident, you know, the one with the avalanche and the hikers that went missing and the ones that got injured, or other incidents where, like, you know, I don't remember the name of the incident, but the plane crash in the mountains where they started eating the people that would die. This is basically all those incidents wrapped into one, and then you threw Cthulhu into the mix. This shit right here, dude, this shit right here, this shit, This is what we call a fucking problem. This shit is a problem, dog. And I know that it sounds like a cop-out at this point, but I'm really not trying to spoil it because the twist is so good. The twist is so good with this. This whole situation, this whole bitch right here, this shit is fucked up. This is also an example of one of those stories that actually has an ending, which is why the Kirby hat is here to cover it up. Because I realize I've been kind of spoiling the ending by leaving these fucking pages showing. This is good. What's behind this hat right now? This shit is good. Tell him, Curb. Tell him, Curb. Magami Nanakuse, this is another example of him doing horror comedy, and it's fine. It's an okay story. It was kind of funny, wasn't that scary, but it had a good amount of tension. It was okay. Not my favorite, kind of like a Dissection Sean. You know, it's pretty funny, it's pretty scary. This lady gets roasted so bad she pisses herself. It's a weird one. It's okay. Then after that, we get to Whispering Woman, the final story in the book, and probably the darkest one. This story covers just about everything, from demonic possession to domestic violence. It is not afraid to go there. It's also one of his stories that has an ending, like the plot threads kind of get wrapped up, even though it's a little bit more open than the other endings. This one's even harder to talk about without fucking anything up. I've probably already talked about too much. Well, my phone died, which means that my camera died. And now it's 9 p.m. and I have no idea what I was talking about, what bit I was doing. I could watch the footage back and look that up to see what I was doing to fix the continuity, but I won't. The Whispering Woman is a story that starts off as a quirky slice of life about a girl who cannot make decisions for herself and is probably a little bit autistic, and quickly turns into something that is a lot darker than it starts. This is one of those stories that Junji Ito wrote that both the more realistic aspect of the story and the supernatural aspect of the story are equally horrifying. Like, they're both pretty fucking bad. However, the ending of this book is actually an ending, and the ending itself is pretty satisfying. Even though it is incredibly dark, it's satisfying in a, I'm glad this happened to this person, but I hate that that happened to that person type of way. But it's very good. I enjoyed this story a lot. Junji Ito's Fragments of Horror, dude, it was a great read. This has me a lot more invested into picking up more of Junji Ito's stuff. I'm thinking of picking up Tomie and rereading Uzumaki and picking up any of the other compendiums that we can find. Dude, this book is so fucking cool. It has both a sleeve and like a dual image, actual like hardcover. Man, this shit is, it's so fire. Such a good gift. So good. So yeah, this is a really good collection. Junji Ito is fantastic. I can't wait to read more of his stuff. And I don't really know how to end this video, so I think we should just end it by reading the afterword. So this is my first collection of horror stories in 8 years, ever since I put out Shinyami no Koe Kaidan in 2006. During those 8 years, I was doing plenty of work on illustrations and manga about cats or about society, but even taking that into account, the time seems too empty somehow. What on earth was I doing all that time? Well, I do remember a bunch of things, like some really detailed work and busy private life, but even still, 8 years? It is true that I'm not as strong as I used to be, and I couldn't work any faster than I was, but I feel like I wasted a whole lot of time. During this period, Mr. Tohiyasu Harada, my editor, a man who has been good to me for so many years at Asahi Sonorama, passed away. I had wanted to work with Mr. Harada again, so when he passed away, he left a gaping hole in my heart. Oh, and a few hours after Mr. Harada left us, our cat Yonsuke also died. The model for the monster cat, Yon, that shows up in my cat manga. It might be a coincidence, I experienced it as a mysterious sort of connection. And so, a collection of horror stories after 8 years. When he saw my first storyboard for the short story Futon, my editor, Mr. Yoshida, got worried and called me. He felt that my instincts for horror hadn't returned. I don't know if it was because I hadn't drawn horror in such a long time, but it was indeed a subpar storyboard. I redid the whole thing, but it still didn't quite come together for me. It was a reluctant start to my first horror serialization in some time. I went on to draw 6 more stories after that, so maybe in the end, my horror instincts have returned. At any rate, I'm very happy to have this collection published. I want to offer my sincerest gratitude to everyone in the Nemuki editorial division who gave me this opportunity, starting with my editors Mikio Yoshida and Makiko Hara, and Keisuke Minohara of Rocket Bomb, who did the cover design. Junji Ito, April 30th, 2014.